Welcome, listeners, to Literary Lifelines, the podcast where we dive deep into books that have the power to change the way you see the world. I'm your host, Alec. And I'm Melody. It's great to be here with you all. Today, we're tackling a book that is, without a doubt, one of the most profound and influential works of the 20th century. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
It's such a short book, but it packs an unbelievable punch. For anyone who doesn't know, Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, and this book is part memoir of his experience in the concentration camps and part introduction to his theory of logotherapy.
Exactly. And what's so staggering is how he uses the most horrific circumstances imaginable as a crucible to understand the human spirit. It's not about the horror itself, but about the sources of strength that can be found even within it.
Right. It asks the ultimate question: how do we find meaning in suffering? And today we want to unpack some of its key themes and discuss why it remains so incredibly relevant.
So, the first part of the book is Frankl's account of life in Auschwitz and other camps. And he's observing everything not just as a prisoner, but as a psychiatrist. He's analyzing the psychological journey of his fellow inmates and himself.
He talks about the different phases they went through, right? Starting with shock.
Yes, exactly. The initial shock of arrival, and then a descent into a kind of emotional death, which he calls apathy. It was a necessary defense mechanism. To feel anything in that environment would be to go insane.
That makes sense. Apathy as a shield.
Right. But the central point he makes, the one that becomes the foundation for his entire philosophy, is what he calls the last of the human freedoms. The freedom to
choose your attitude.
The freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. He saw men who, despite the starvation and brutality, would comfort others or give away their last piece of bread.
Why you?
And in those moments, he realized that you can take everything from a person except one thing: their ability to decide how they will respond. That inner choice, that inner freedom can never be taken away.
That's such a powerful idea, because it puts the responsibility back on us, even in situations where we feel completely powerless.
Completely. It's the ultimate form of agency. He talks about how the prisoners who had the best chance of survival were not necessarily the physically strongest, but those who had a why to live for, a future goal, a loved one to see again, a mission to complete, a sense of purpose. Exactly. He would imagine himself in the future giving lectures on the psychology of the concentration camp, and that mental act of finding meaning in his suffering helped him rise above it.
And that leads perfectly into the second half of the book, where he introduces his school of psychotherapy, logotherapy.
It does. Logos is Greek for meaning, so logotherapy is quite literally meaning therapy. It's a departure from Freudian psychoanalysis, which focuses on pleasure, or Adlerian psychology, which focuses on power.
Right. Frankl says the primary driving force in human beings is the search for meaning.
The will to meaning, as he calls it. He argues that when people lack this sense of meaning, they experience what he calls an existential vacuum.
An existential vacuum. I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling today, a sense of aimlessness or emptiness, even when you have comfort and security.
Totally. It's that feeling of, is this all there is? So logotherapy isn't about digging into your past, but about looking toward your future. It's about discovering the meaning that already exists in your life.
So how do you do that? He gives 3 main paths, right?
He does. The first is through creating a work or doing a deed. This is probably the most straightforward. Finding meaning in your job, your art, your contribution to the world.
Your creative output.
Yes. The second way is by experiencing something or encountering someone. This can be finding meaning in the beauty of nature or art, but the highest form of this, for Frankl, is love.
Loving another person?
Yes, he writes so beautifully about how thinking of his wife was his salvation in the camps. He realized that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. The salvation of man is through love and in love.
That's beautiful. So it's not just about what we do, but about who we love and what we appreciate.
Exactly. And then there's the third path, which is perhaps the most profound and unique to Frankl's philosophy.
The one about suffering.
The one that can be found in the face of unavoidable suffering. He's very clear that we should never seek out suffering, but when it's unavoidable, like a terminal illness or, in his case, a concentration camp, it presents an opportunity. An opportunity to do what? An opportunity to turn a personal tragedy into a triumph, to bear witness to the human potential to rise above one's fate. The meaning lies in the attitude we take toward that suffering. It becomes a test of our inner strength.
So it's about how you bear your cross, that's the meaning.
Precisely. It's transforming suffering into a human achievement.
It's such a heavy book, but it's also incredibly hopeful. He calls it tragic optimism.
Tragic optimism. I love that phrase. It's optimism in the face of tragedy. It's the ability to say yes to life in spite of everything, to find meaning in pain, to turn guilt into an opportunity to change, and to see life's transitoriness as a reason to act responsibly.
Right. The fact that life is finite is what gives our choices weight.
Absolutely. And think about how relevant this is today. We live in a world with so much anxiety, depression, and that existential vacuum we talked about. People are desperately searching for purpose.
Totally. We're constantly bombarded with messages that happiness is the goal. Buy this, achieve that, and you'll be happy. But Frankl turns that on its head.
He does. He has that amazing quote, "Don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you are going to miss it. For success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue. It only does so as the unintended side effect of one's dedication to a cause greater than oneself."
It must ensue. That's such a radical idea in our goal-obsessed culture. Happiness isn't a destination, it's a byproduct of a meaningful life. So if you're feeling that existential vacuum, the solution isn't to navel-gaze and ask, what will make me happy, but to ask, what does life expect of me? What is my unique responsibility?
Exactly. And this is where logotherapy gets very practical. It's not just a high-minded philosophy, it has actual techniques for helping people who are struggling. Two of the most interesting are paradoxical intention and de-reflection.
Let's break those down. They sound a bit intimidating.
They're simpler than they sound. Paradoxical intention is a fascinating tool for dealing with anxiety. Let's say someone has a fear of blushing in public. They become so anxious about blushing that, of course, they blush constantly. It's a vicious cycle. The fear feeds the very thing you're afraid of. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Precisely. So, with paradoxical intention, the therapist would encourage the person to actively try to blush, to go into a social situation and think, okay, I'm going to show everyone here how red my face can get. I'm going to blush more than anyone has ever blushed before.
That sounds completely counterintuitive. You're telling them to do the thing they dread.
Yes, and that's the paradox. By trying to force it, and by using humor to detach from the fear, the anxiety loop is broken. You can't be anxious about something you are actively trying to do. The anticipatory anxiety evaporates, and often the symptom itself disappears because the underlying fear is gone.
So you take the wind out of the fear's sails by sailing directly into it. I love that. What about the other one, de-reflection?
De-reflection is for when we are too self-absorbed or hyper-focused on a problem. Frankl noticed that many people who are unhappy are constantly monitoring their own feelings, asking, "Am I happy yet? Why am I not happy?" This intense self-observation or hyper-reflection can actually prevent happiness.
It's like trying to fall asleep by thinking really hard about falling asleep. It never works.
Perfect analogy. De-reflection is the cure. It encourages you to shift your focus away from yourself and onto the world, to find a meaningful task or to focus on another person. By engaging with something or someone outside of ourselves, we forget ourselves, and happiness can sneak in the back door.
It feels so relevant to modern issues like career dissatisfaction. So many people feel stuck in jobs that don't provide a sense of meaning. They might be well paid, but they feel that existential vacuum you mentioned.
Absolutely. From a logotherapy perspective, the answer isn't necessarily to quit your job and find your one true passion. That can be a lot of pressure. Instead, it's about finding meaning right where you are. How can you reframe your current role? Can you focus on the ways your work helps others, even in a small way, or mentor a junior colleague?
So it's about shifting your attitude towards your work, finding the meaning that's already there rather than waiting for the perfect job to bestow meaning upon you. You can also find primary meaning outside of your job, in family, in community work, in a creative project.
Exactly. Your job doesn't have to be the sole source of your life's meaning. That's a very modern and often very stressful expectation. Frankl's work reminds us that meaning is available everywhere, in every moment, in the love for our family, in the beauty of a sunset, and even in the courage we show during difficult times.
It really is a profound shift in perspective. It moves the source of meaning from something external that we have to find to something internal that we have the power to create through our choices and attitudes.